Flor, do you want to share something?
Do you hear me?
Me?
Oh, yeah, we hear you.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
oh, so I'm just hearing myself. No, that's okay. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I think yeah, I will take some time until I come back. So yeah, we did some experiments here. So maybe I'll put a little bit of context. So the girl who I work with now, she suffers from bipolarity and depression. She's in here for in a raw food diet retreat for 45 days. And then we decided that inner dance should be an interesting way to deal with her problems. Yeah. So I got the insight it would be really interesting for her to do some sessions on a daily basis with the new, like kind of a new methods. But like I figured out even at the beginning that 1 hour sessions should be really intense for her to deal with. So we started doing daily sessions with 20 minutes only. It's 20 to 30 minutes every time. And without touching at all. So the idea is that I used the modular synth playing live. So I started to record everything. So maybe if you are on the playlist WhatsApp group, you can have the recording on my folder. Otherwise, I will share it later. So the idea is that I have kept it like really gentle and only like playing with noise. So maybe I can show you what it looks like. Yeah. So okay, just follow the Maia Earth because it's quite complicated with the sound. I don't know what is happening on the laptop. So if you look at this, maybe we'll see something. Yeah. Okay. So it's a modular theme, so I have like plenty of stuff here and that. So the idea of this kind of instruments is that you are playing directly on the signal. So it's you are just like shaping with electricity some noises, and then you can like transfer from module to module the noise. And from an inner dance perspective, it's really interesting because so it creates a lot of chaos actually. And also you will have a lot of unexpected results because like a lot of the sounds you are creating will be like based on like randomness. Then even me when I'm playing, I have like unexpected results that can, yeah, I'm still amazed by that actually. And the results are really good. So it's been near than 3 weeks now. And so she feels really lighter. She started to have like the first session, like from the first session she had like she experienced the thing starting from like a lot of heaviness in her body, etc., and coming to a lot of light. Actually, like I was really amazed by today's sessions. Like I think she started moving on the second day, and it's getting better and better. And then what's interesting with the 20-minute sessions that she's never overwhelmed by it. So I can see it's really grounding actually for her. And yeah, it's never too much. So I'm even considering doing this, like going back in France, like finding a way to have like daily sessions in some place that just people can come every day and just keep it short. So yeah, and I am also working on creating like a library of sounds that you could use. So for the moment, I have all in an Ableton uh, file. So maybe I can show you my screen. Okay, so okay, we don't care. So basically it's all in there. So I could play everything. So I think maybe the ones who want this, you should like you can have it somehow. But even if you don't have it, you could put it in. So I found an app we can use for just putting samples in it. So you could even mix those kind of sounds with yours. And for the long term, I'm considering building a new app for inner dance with all the sounds that would permit, for example, maybe to record playlists and then just extract it. So maybe in a year, I don't really know. Okay, that's for this part. Maybe you guys have some questions or I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
I do have a question, Francois, if you have
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
So,
Just tell me.
I have a daughter, she's 20 and she's got anxiety and depression. So I'm really interested in what you're saying. And first of all, I was wondering how can I access maybe one track that I can help her? And would you say she can listen to it by herself, or would I need to be there online because she doesn't live with me, facilitating maybe from the distance?
Okay, maybe I just share. Okay, I put this here. Okay, you have it in the chat. So you just click on it and you have the tiny playlist. Yeah, and you can like just starting to experiment. If you want to share after, I'm obviously up to do that. Okay, and maybe I can continue with the EEG experiment. So I don't know if you know, but Pi bought an EEG we can use at home. So it looks like that. Maybe I will share again. Okay, so it looks like that. Okay, you have like this kind of thing, and you have like on the brain like 16 electrodes recording what is happening in the brain. So every electrodes is mapping what's happening on one part of the brain. So I've started to just record, like just look into the brain, like what areas are concerned. And then the idea is that I built an experiment playlist. So the first part is just modular synthesis, but just one layer, really gentle, like delta waves. And then I put multi-layered sounds until I put like some known music. So, and the idea is that the participant won't be able to, like, they won't know what's in the playlist before. So we can really look at what is happening. And we started to do some, so we tested it with Gra. So it looks like that. Okay, so recorded it. So we have the 16 sensors here, and it's just recording every brainwave it can. And then you see we'll have like zones like this. For example, maybe I can. Okay, so this is the inner dance state. So for example, here the music has started. It's just the beginning, so the one layer. Then at, I think it's 4, we have like multi-layer appearing. Okay, and what's interesting, because we can't really extract something from that, but with this view, so we can just look at any sensor, and then we have like the amount of theta alpha, etc. So the idea would be to have like the people who will come to the training next week. We will test the playlist with their brain, so they all will test it. And then I can extract like a chart with this. And we can try to figure out what is happening in the brain during the playlist, even if we can just have access to the cortex. We can't have really access to what's inside the brain, but that's a beginning. If we start to have like interesting insights, maybe we could find a way to expand this work with like more expansive material. So yeah, that's it. I think I'm done. Did Pai come back? Okay.
I don't think it's back.
Okay, maybe he messaged me. Okay, we don't have anything. I'll message him.
He sent a message in the group that he
Ah.
was trying to connect by his mobile phone, I think.
Okay. Maybe I will put the laptop off, because as we have the same account, it may be the reason why. Okay, I'll just do that. So I'm still on the phone. How do I quit here? Okay. Oh, I need to assign someone. Okay, Flor, you will be the admin. Okay. Maybe you guys have some question on the experiment. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, I think that EEG, I was just sending a message to Ahilan that EEG is super interesting. I want one too. I want to have one for the trainings. I'm so curious to see what will be the outcome of next week when you're using those with all of the participants. How many will there be available?
How many people?
Yeah, and EEG body worn things. Yeah.
We will have, I think, 10 people, 10 persons. I'm not sure yet, actually.
And all of them will wear that EEG?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Yeah, we won't do it at the same time, so they will pass. Yeah, one after other.
Okay, very curious
So
results. Yeah.
yeah, okay, more details about okay. The sessions, okay, I think I have a, do you hear me still? Okay, that's good. Okay, so the question was about the experiments I did here with the depression bipolar girl, depressive. So the idea is that she just lie down and I play music. So I didn't even put too much delta at first. The idea is that I was really curious about how you can enter the process without like a standard method. So the first session were really gentle, not too much triggering. And then I was able to put more and more trigger. So the idea, yeah, what I what I just saw is that now she's in it. I don't even like the setup. The setup is not even important. Like I can just play music. I could put the playlist from the middle. It would totally work also. I didn't do it. I might try it. Actually. Could be interesting. And also like she's having as much interesting insights than if she did like a 1 hour session. So it's really good. After that, I can't just isolate the inner dance sessions because she's also in a raw food diet. She does yoga every day. I also do qigong every morning with her, so it's quite like a lot of things. So I can't isolate that, but I think I will try to find a way to do only that one day. Yeah, that's it. For the question about that's bad. Okay. Okay, for the question for the problem with the energy and the EEG, like for the moment, the thing we struggle with the most is the bad connectivity. Like, for example, when you are moving the head, it messes all up. So yeah, but I think even with this kind of problem, if we can have interesting insights, it will be still interesting for us. Yet it won't be like, for a researcher, it won't be like interesting at all because we don't have the rigor, like it's not a really serious study, but it's a beginning at first. So yeah, if we can have only like just differences between the different phases, it's still a beginning of something. So I think I will share with you the results of it when I will be done with it. And also, I think when I won't be there anymore, we will continue to do it. I think Pai and Gra will want to continue it. So yeah. And also, if you don't know, like this kind of EEGs are really affordable. Like it's expensive, but not that much. So you can totally have one. I'm considering maybe like the one with the 16 sensor is not the best because it's really bad. Like it's not the best for connectivity. Like it's really hard to set up. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people have problem with EEGs, so I don't really know. I think we had 3 in Maya. One is broken. The 2 others are still working. And we only have one with the 16 electrodes. So yeah, I don't know. Okay. Do you have some news from Pi? Okay. Maybe. Okay. Let me.
Francois, hi. This is Anahata. I have a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Hi. I wanted to ask, have you done any testing with regards to the music you've been created on children? So, you know,
Yeah, just finished. Sorry.
I just was curious if you know if the shorter playlists you've been creating have been used by during the session and there were any children present.
No, I just had one girl. She's 25. But that's interesting you ask this question because they will have in Maya a training with children. So maybe they could test it. Yeah, I think it would be interesting. Even because like having a child being lying down for 1 hour it could not be possible. So having like really short playlist should be a way. Yeah. So yeah, I think we just have to test a lot of things now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious because you know sometimes like what I'm trying to do is go into a school setting and sometimes the shorter playlist would be like a really good for example, if you want to bring it into this schooling system and the schooling system is not yet open to hold like a whole 45 minutes or an hour session, but it could be used as a during the break, for example, 20-minute break. So any shorter type of playlist could be a with the focus on children could be a very supportive.
Yeah, there's also
So maybe you guys can
another like part in it. Like you could even do like 10-minute session with this kind of even 5 minutes. Another thing that is interesting is that as you have only like unexpected sounds, I would tell, you won't feed the dopaminic brain anymore. So you won't have the problem you can have with music. And I think for children, it's really important to keep it like really integrative and not like activating anything too much because they are already in that state. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Just
Thank you.
look at the questions. No, it's not based on the 12 steps. Actually, I haven't once tried to do a 12-stage playlist. Like the playlist I did with like 1 hour and 1 hour and a half, it's still like quite similar because I used like the sleep cycle. So you will also have like 2 or 3 phases. But no, it's not really based on the 12 stage. I think even doesn't do it that much now. Even like not at all. I don't really know. We haven't talked about it. But yeah. Okay, let me just a minute.
Yeah, hi everyone. Here's Achlan speaking. Hope everyone is safe and sound. Hello. Very special call for Blue. Blue is time and space. At the same time, also Blue is communion. Blue is communication. Blue is finding our voice, speaking and expression. And there is something happening. There is something about when we think about voice, those who has no voice, when there's something in ourselves, when it's find the voice to express whatever the voice mean. Sometimes that's about even not about us or ourselves. It's a language. It's just expressing itself or through ourselves. And while we are all together right now, I would be really interested into listening to your blue processes. Yeah, what are your blue processes? Have you had any blue processes? Finding your voices, sharing. I think this is an amazing goal where we have this space right now to share with each other different kind of blue processes. I would love to listening to some of you. If you all are also interested, let's have a little sharing.
Hi. Maybe I can share something. Pai asked me to share something, by the way, so it can be done now. He asked at the end, but this could be done now if it's okay. So my name is Sofie, and I'm from Belgium. I'm holding the Belgian group, and about the blue, I would like to share something because we're doing something new here in Belgium with inner dance, and I would love to share that with you. So a little bit of going back to where it started. So when I first talked to Pai about the 3-month training, it was like 2.5 years ago. I told him that I was very hungry to learn. And so I wanted to be fed with information, with knowledge, so there could be a feedback. So I had so many questions and I could not find anything satisfying, no answers in any training or anyone I was speaking with. So fast forward to now, this study and the knowledge shared have far exceeded my expectations. For the past year, studying has become a part of my daily routine. And I spent several hours on it every day. So it took a while to integrate, but as I was last year, I started holding the Belgian calls. I needed to understand the global calls better to talk to the questions from our community. So it was really a must to study. And before summer, my 7-year-old daughter, Anna, told me that she didn't want to live anymore. So it was because she was bullied at school. And thanks to this study, I realized I needed to look within myself. So this led me through a really profound self-reflection, and I dove straight into the dark night of the soul. And during that time, I joined Flor and Andre's voice immersion together with other people from the Belgium year training in the Germany's Black Forest. And that was needed and very welcome because it invited the unseen blue part of me that had been in like an arrested development phase since forever. So after acknowledging that I had a voice and seeing that when I got back from the immersion, even my daughter, the moment I stepped out of the car, my daughter spoke. So something had been changed with her. There was I felt like Pai was saying in the beginning of the call that there is sometimes a noise that you can feel. It's inner dance, and there was I could feel a sound inside of me, but at that time it wasn't possible like to share it or to share it. But thanks to that immersion, and thanks to the dark night of the soul, and thanks to everything, there has been some blue of indigo coming out of me. And one thing that happened to me, it was I got an out of body experience while I was driving with my youngest daughter on the back seat. And I remember while I was the air, and I saw my human body in that red car, and I knew I can trust this. And so it hit me that I needed the knowledge to be able to have access to my or our consciousness. So the study blew up so many paradigms and so many belief structures, and I'm just in fully trust. After realizing that, what the study did for me, I felt the urge to share the study with everyone, not only the people who lay down on the mat, also elder people or people who would never attend a group process of inner dance. So we started in Bornem, in Belgium, the waking up at the breakfast talks. So they were born from that space. And so far, we've held 2 talks. The first one was on November 3rd. And I'm following the inner dance mandala. So we started with red, and that was the wisdom of the body. And 9 people attended, some familiar, some were totally new. And over coffee and breakfast and juices, people shared hesitantly at first, but afterwards the conversation deepened. So we discussed concepts like sleep cycle, triune brain, a circadian rhythm. And it's not easy to explain what happened there at the breakfast table. But yesterday, Helen and we had a call with other people from Belgium for our training we're holding in 2 weeks. And one of the women who were at the breakfast talks was yesterday in the call, and she said it was just magic. And I felt it that way too. Now I have hold space for women's circles, but this was different. You know, people were crying, were shaking, as if it was an inner dance group process, and they were just sitting there taking their breakfast, eyes open on a chair, not laying down on the mat with frequencies coming in their brains. So I did not held then a lecture. I did talked about concepts and theories, as we see here in the year training, but it was a dialogue, and there was no judgment. There was like introspection happening through those different concepts and theories. So it was like they felt really safe to show what was needed to be seen. And I did at the first talk, I did not talk about inner dance because I didn't want it to be like a publicity for my sessions. It was like something else. But at the end, it's obviously not something else. But I didn't talk about inner dance, and yet 4 of the people who attended the breakfast talks, they they looked up in my website, and they registered for the evening group process. So it's beyond words what the experience was. They just entered with so much trust in their process, and it makes me think about my experience in the car. So we always have that kind of access, but in my experience, it was the fear and judgments that held me back from that kind of experiences. So the knowledge of this study gave me trust. Last Sunday, we held our second talk, and we moved to the orange theme. It was exploring creation, destruction, renewal, sexuality. And some attendees from the previous week shared profound shifts that they experienced, even without coming to the inner dance group process in the evening. So one even made a major life decision. Another one was in total chaos. And that's what we like when people go through the chaos, because there can be something new being born out of it. So it was perfect with the orange theme of the destruction and the renewal. So the conversations we have been talking about the scientific ideas also, because there was a friend of mine who is an engineer who was there too, and she could combine the scientific themes with the inner dance. It was really a beautiful talk. And it was about the dream theory, for example, the emergent and convergent co-creation, about life, death, the black hole. And to close, I played a womb inspired soundscape that brought up like vivid memories for many. And the thing I remember the most is that the man who was there, he closed his eyes and he said, I closed my eyes and I saw. So it took like 3 minutes, not even 5 minutes, to just with some soundscapes of the mind noise. And there was one woman, an elder woman, she saw her whole life in those 3 minutes of soundscape with mind noise. It was an amazing experience. So out of that grew a new WhatsApp group community, because they feel that they want to be connected together, and it's really active. that WhatsApp group, all those WhatsApp groups. Oh, so thank you for listening. I see there's somebody. Is he back? Is Pi back?
Pi is back. Yeah.
Oh, get there.
This is proper blue, yeah. So
Mm,
speaking, non-speaking.
it's good. Yeah, totally. I'm really glad that it worked out this way because this is how it should be. I don't even know where I dropped off. Um, does anyone
That you
have
have blue.
any? Does anyone have anything to share or express or ask Sofie on this? I'm really happy with this because this is where I see inner dance headed into the next years. I feel that inner dance can happen in a library, in a shopping mall, in a school, in a hospital, in the jail, and it doesn't always have to do with laying down. I remember instances in places like Singapore and Mindanao in the Philippines or in India where I would just have a conversation. And you know how inner dance would be particularly about using the music and laying down, which has a way of cutting through the skin, the layers, the wall. It can break the walls down. But what I would do in a noisy place is I would just be talking to someone and I would just sometimes ask, do you understand that you are the universe? And then and that was it. It's like boom. It did not it didn't take anything other than that. It's like all I had to do is actually cut through the BS, the illusion, and then suddenly the awareness is there. But what's so beautiful about cases like these is the universe starts speaking back through that which is being seen and that which is being heard. Next thing you know, universe is talking to each other in a Starbucks. Okay, so I see Sandrine raise her hand. Did you have a thing to say or something to ask?
Yeah, I need to go in half an hour, so that's why I thought I would like to come back, but I need to be in an appointment. Just because, as a reaction on what Sofie said and on being in the blue, is that I really want to share that I'm really grateful. I've been working now for 1 year with the playlist with children in the school, in my own practice. And it's incredible how they shift from being in different dimensions, like you say, like there is no time, there is no place, we are universe. And it shifted now to giving voice to the teams who are not able to be speaking. And then I mean with the children, it's very difficult for them to talk about loss. It's a very difficult team. And now the last 3, because every 2 weeks they get a session. In the beginning, I started with 5 minutes at the end, and then 20 minutes, and I so expanded it. And now they really ask for, okay, teacher, when can we do the massage? When can we do the inner dance again? But now the teams are coming like after it. It's really like, teacher, I want to tell you something. I saw my father, but it was a new child, and it's a refugees. We have a lot of new refugees. I saw my father, but my father died last year, and he was there, and we footballed together, and yeah, he really talked to me, and I can talk to him. How is this possible? And this is also a boy, you have to know, he's not a speak forward boy in the classroom. He's one who's like heavy, and he's a little bit has a lot of energy and everybody. He's very quiet about his own feelings. And because of the conversation was there that because it was at the end that he started talking about his father, someone else said, how is this possible? I saw my grandfather, and it was a grandfather that I never saw, but I think it's not fair. He is the father of my mother, and I never had the chance to connect with him. And it's not fair, and I'm really sad about it, but I saw him, and he came to me and he gave me a hug. And then it was like time, we had like a whole conversation about loss, what it means for you. But there were conversations and themes who were not easy to bring, who were not easy to collect. And everybody was there, but not from in a hurtful place of a lot of emotions were coming up. No, it was like a conversation from out of warmth and from out of the heart. And the week after that, it was another boy who also said afterwards, and not because, 2 weeks after, like, okay, now I also want to talk about it. It was, oh my God, teacher, I saw my niece, and my niece, I haven't when I was in Yemen, she was born but without a feet, and the mother of my mother, she took care of them because her parents were dead, but she didn't know, and she always thought that I was her brother, that she was my sister. But when I was here in Belgium, after 2 years, we get the message that she died. But I have never talked to her after that. And now she was here, and we were playing, and we were holding each other, and she was saying that she's missing me. It was incredible. Even now, my stomach is feeling all those emotions. And that's what I say, like, it's incredible how beautiful, feeling it all over again, how intense the magic, and I call it magic, but you understand what I mean, how much the kids in this phase of their life already can discover and can go into dialogue with words they have otherwise have protectors to hold them back to speak because of the system, because of they don't want to hurt their parents, or talking about the ones they lost, and they don't want to, they a lot of time they are fearful to ask about the death. And now it was so, I can't give it another word. And it's not like that you talked about it, or that there was a team. It was a session about resilience, about something else. And then in the last 20 minutes, I always use it. And then we get in a whole different pattern of conversations. And so I thought it is a really nice blue thing to combine, because the words were there, but they didn't find the place to be told. So yeah, it's really beautiful. And I know from the heart that it's only going to get further and deeper. So I'm also very looking forward to new playlists regulated for the ways of children, because I can use that so much also in my own practice. I had a coach who was very fearful, and he just said, oh, please, can I go back to her? Because I can just let go. I can just let go of everything which is happening in my body. So there is a lot of space for it. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sandrine. So much
I
good
see.
news from
I
Belgium.
see still a question how old they are. They were like in the kids that I was talking now about. They were like in just 10 years old, 8 or 10 years old.
Mm.
So it was still young group. Okay, thank you.
Mm.
And thank you for everything.
So much amazing news from that part of the world. And there are a lot of amazing projects as well coming up, different parts of Europe and in the Americas and in Asia. So yeah, I'm really happy to see this coming forth. Sandrine's talking both about schools and the refugee center. Okay, I would like to go into the blue curriculum because we are rounding out the colors. We are in our third to the last call. And I feel we need to pave the way for indigo, which will be closing. And after that closing, we would have the closing. We would have another violet where we could all just share your own integrations. And now it would be your turn. And then we would look forward to what would next year look like for the global community. Considering this is the first time we studied for a whole year together. I honestly don't know. Sorry, someone's unmuted. Sandrine, I think you're unmuted, so we can hear you talking to someone else. Okay. All right. So I actually don't know where I left off. I was speaking for almost the whole time that I was lost. I didn't. Sandrine, you're still unmuted. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sandrine, you're unmuted. We can hear you speaking. Okay, I did it. All right. Go back to this. So I actually didn't know that I was not in the space. I just kept talking and talking and going over all these. I think it's all meant to be. So I'm happy actually because it is feeling like I was looping. Now I know why. I was all alone with everyone else in the cosmos. All right, so let's go back to the blue then. And more or less look for a starting point. What is it in language anyway that speaks through us? That is a system. And I would hope that you can watch the other call that took place a couple of days ago, but because there was a lot there, and I'm not going to go back into the blue is speaking. So I'm gonna shortcut. I have this whole whole outline. Oh, and it just got deleted too. This is so interesting. It's speaking. The blue is speaking. So that's what I wanted to do anyway. So if it's deleted, then it's meant to be. I want to start new. I want to start fresh. So I'm gonna go straight to the heart of it. I'm feeling like bringing up the dream space as the blue space. And I'm not in Maya, so I asked Italy to more or less send me, this page. There, okay, I was trying to make it bigger. I wanted to refer to it, so I want to read this quote by David Folks. Dreaming must be seen as something more than anomalous perceiving. It's a human conceptual achievement of the first magnitude, and one of the core problems of cognitive psychology. It needs, once again, as it was by Sigmund Freud, to be recognized as a problem so super central to the study of the mind that its resolution can help to reveal the fundamental structures of human thought. And I do believe that the notes in blue, in fact, brings us close to what David Folks was already seeing in 1978 in the book A Grammar of Dreams. So I do share with you that inner dance is dream time, and it becomes quite a productive and positive thing to study what it is. What is it in the structure of dreams that reveals the structures of consciousness? Now, initially, I feel to go straight to the point, because dream can be quite mystical, mysterious thing. What is the point in the dream? Feel that dream can bring us a notion of what is happening when we are awake, primarily because when we are dreaming, there is a part of the brain that is actually awake while we are sleeping. So something wakes up while we're sleeping. So there's something awake that bears looking at. There's something sleeping and unconscious. There's something sleeping while we are sleeping that isn't just the wake part that's sleeping, that could probably bring some awareness as to what is the unconscious. And for me, what is happening right now is the unconscious is becoming conscious. Because if we are able to experience REM while we are awake, if we are also able to experience awake while we are sleeping, some people call that lucid dreaming. I feel dream will bring us some notes as to what is consciousness. What does it mean to become conscious, to awaken? And what does it mean to also awaken the unconscious without disturbing the unconscious? Okay, what if you woke up and you were still sleeping? You can see through the perspective of sleep, which for me is almost synonymous with death. If you awoke while you were dead, what would it look like? Would you see what is through the black hole? So I feel dream theory, dream science bears that. So I want to borrow certain notes from linguistics. I hope I'm not repeating myself because I don't know what where I stopped. We're gonna borrow certain things around psychology, so talking about the dream, and then we need to look at the new neurology. And as I don't like to repeat myself, I want to take this chance to bring up certain things that we haven't taken up in the last colors. Primarily these three together. Let's bring that into play. So in the blue, the philosophy that holds things together is structuralism. And in the last call, we talked about cybernetics, the concept of autopoiesis, to look at as well structuralism as the convergence of multiple thought domains, a multidisciplinarity, or the moment when different practitioners or specialists started to see that they needed to borrow notes from each other in order to derive what is the whole systems, what is the big picture. Okay, so because we're starting at the heart of it, we're starting at the point rather than me meandering slowly towards this is supposed to be my peak point, my climax. I want to start at the end and make our way back, to reverse engineer our way back. So I'm going to bring up certain thinkers here. We're going to go look at some of the thought experiments of Sigmund Freud, Jacques Lacan, and we're also going to be bringing up once again Roman Jakobson. Certain things that we might have brought up before, but I feel need to be brought up again because there is a possible inner dance philosophy, set of theories, and there's a science here that could explain some of the musical theories. I didn't hear Francois speak, but I do know what he represents. This new music that we talk about, it's coming from somewhere. So I want to maybe outline their thoughts a little bit more clearly to provide you possible frameworks so that if you had to explain this to someone later on, if you needed practice that's bound by specific theories, that's guided by a philosophy, then you would have a starting point that doesn't just belong to you or inner dance, it belongs to the collective consciousness. Okay, so let's go straight to the matrix of inner dance, which we had brought up time and time again. So speaking of time, let's put that there. Let's put this here. So let's treat this as a review, but let's look deeper into what is here and what is not here. So initially, this was a project in structuralism. Prior to Freud, this was something naturally coming out already of Ferdinand de Saussure, who is possibly the founder of modern linguistics. So when we were studying the structure of language, this matrix was there. And the reason why we would bring up Roman Jakobson is because his particular science in linguistics describes inner dance when he studied aphasia. When he studied how people lost their minds, he perceived the structure of consciousness as space and time. And space and time is a language of the inner dance playlist. Primarily, what we haven't spoken about is the reading of Lacan, whereby there are tenets of psychoanalysis, of the psychological, that could be possibly useful for us. And then we would go into a current brain science that helps us to understand REM state, non-REM state, and wake consciousness. Back here, like where is that? Sleep, which is REM and non-REM, and wake. What do we have now? What is current in neurology? And there are limitations there. What is current in neurology is actually quite basic, but nonetheless, inner dance steps ahead and possibly contributes to that. So I'd love to work with you on finding those possibilities. So within Jakobson, Saussure, Lacan, and Freud, there is a dream theory here. Roland Barthes contributed his own terminologies here as well. So let me clear this. Let me clear this up, and let's look at some of the terms. Let's line them up. Maybe here, space and time. There's the paradigmatic and the syntagmatic. There is the dream condensation. And then there's the dream displacement. Just want to describe how these philosophers arrived at all these. And actually, to make this make sense, I need to go into a history of our understanding, or our academics and language, philosophy, linguistics, and neurology. There has to be a timeline as to how things arrive into a unitive space. The project here is the mind-body problem, that there is no such problem. There is such a problem in Western rational thought, and this is now going away. This is coming into a solution as we go back to the body that actually brings an understanding of a greater mind that is embodied. Okay, so in philosophy, mind is disembodied, and that reflected in the science. So science is now looking at the mind as something embodied. Let me see, what else is there? There's metaphor. We already had a call on this before, and then there's metonymy. And I didn't have a chance in that call to explain what was there that makes this psychologically appropriate. Okay, so maybe where do we start? Let's start with Jacobson. Okay, you remember the aphasia essay, and in Jacobson, the terminologies that we had put there is if you have aphasia, you either have this experience of disrupting or damaging what is called code or what is called context. I don't know if you remember the discussion, but it was all about if this is language. Let's say this is a sentence, and the way of conducting a sentence is to maybe string words together. And then this article would be followed by a noun and then a verb, and then maybe predicate, maybe like an adjective, maybe an adverb, and so on and so forth. So for now, let's represent that there are these series of words in a sequence, and either you have a problem with what is called selection, where you have a hard time naming things. So there is a type of aphasia that could happen in inner dance where you have a hard time wording things. Okay. In the website, you have these examples of people not knowing how to call something. So like our favorite example in Maia was when my partner in Italy was asking Christina, do you want some eggs? And then when Christina went into her brain, she didn't recognize the word. She said, what did she say again? Egg, EGG. I don't know what that is. So in her inner dance brain, she experienced a code aphasia. And then there is context aphasia examples. And for those thinking about light language, then that's an example of context aphasia. Another name for that is contiguity disorder in Jacobson. So that's when not the words, but as an example, that's when the letters start to discombine, recombine, uncombine, and then, like it's when you start to change the rules of combination. That is usually what is called grammar in speech. So when you break the grammar, then you break the rules. So those are the terms of Jacobson. So combination. Selection and combination came from Saussure. So selection and combination. So here's where we begin to see the structure. There are terminologies here coming partly from psychology, partly from linguistics, and then there are different forms of linguistics here. Either there's the tropes. Here you have I don't know what you actually call this, but this is dream theory, and so this list actually just keeps going on, and they're all talking about the same thing but different things at the same time. So here's where you have a multidisciplinarity already starting to present what seems like language, but this is actually what the mind looks like. Okay, so before we go too deep into this, I want to go back into the green. If you remember, we took up hermeneutics as our philosophy back then. Please stay with me. We're going to be doing some heavy lifting today, which is what the blue is about. Hermeneutics was the theory of interpretation, which is about how we produce or receive meaning. How does something become meaningful? Now, alongside that, there was an interesting movement which was happening out of the Russian linguistics circle, and this is called Russian formalism. Okay, so We want to bring about these distinctions that in the Western European study of language, the interest initially was interpretation. Like people were interested in studying the Bible and literature, all kinds of texts, because people were interested in meaning. But in Russian formalism, the interest was not that. It was actually an interest in form, an interest in structure. In fact, when people in Russian formalism looked at the text, they were seeing that the meaning was getting in the way of how we might understand how a text is made. So the main interest there was form. So there are, for example, ideas like onomatopoeia. Sounds like a terminology that came up in the last call, autopoiesis. This is not the same. Onomatopoeia is a study of how certain words might resemble the actual meaning. Okay, so remember, I don't know if I got cut when I started to talk about the cup and the liquid. Did I make it to that point or not? Could someone unmute and let me know if I got to
You
that point?
didn't get there. No, no.
Okay, okay. So this is basically what we're talking about. So let's say you have a container and then you have the liquid. So here you have a cup. When you think about change, say, okay, I've got this guy, this gal, and he's laying down, and I'm doing an inner dance process, and their lives are changing. When you think about what might be changing, is it the cup or is it the content? Is it the form or is it the substance? That's a rabbit hole of a question. I'd love for you to think about that today, all the way to next year and the year after that. Um, like if you change the cup, this cup might look like I don't know, like a Coca-Cola bottle or a chalice or a goblet or like a beer mug. Does that change things? Or if I change the content, this is like, is it milk, battery acid? Is it orange juice? Is it coffee? Is it water? So when you think about a human being, what part of the human being is the cup and what part of the human being would be the content? Would one aspect be the mind and would one aspect be the body? We're back to the mind body problem. In the inner dance technology, you'd probably say, well, of course it's going to be the same. We need to change the brain and we need to change the thoughts that are in the brain. We need to change them together. I feel that we are actually coming into a time and space where there was no difference. That form was substance. You're familiar enough with the Marshall McLuhan quote, the medium is the message. The channel is the information. The cup is the content. So when people say my body became energy, or my emotions, my mind, the information was contained, was embodied. This is what people are saying, that I became one. Like they were one and the same thing. And when that is happening, the becoming energy of the body or the embodying of the energy, that is the point that is hard to explain. That's the thing that you can't write about in a Facebook post. That's the thing that's so hard to describe when you're trying to explicate this to someone after what you've just been through. Because when the cup is the substance and the substance is the cup, you're going into the point of origin. We're going back to where things started. So when you go into this sort of mapping, this is where the inner dance is residing. So here you have these playlisting processes. You have the the combination playlist. You have the sequential Spotify song after song thing, and then now you have, let's say, when Francois shares the modulars, the layer, the simultaneity playlist, you know, where everything is happening at the same time in space, as opposed to one at a time in time. There is a point in between, and in my experience, the more you do sequential, the more you actually possibly could arrive at space, and the more you go into the layered, there is a possibility where you could actually go back to time as well. I'm sorry, I'm hearing someone unmuted. Could you mute? It's hard for me to keep going back into the shared screen. So there's a structuralism there. But I start here to help us understand that in the study of the mind and of language, there actually was a kind of dance between meaning and form. Because after hermeneutics, there were, in fact, like many movements that followed. So this is what structuralism was. For those who understand the work of Saussure, you understand the signifier signified relationship, where you have the letters TREE, and then you have the actual tree, that which is signified to be that which is called a sign. And what divides that would be the line like in the middle. So when you look at this map, there is some level of reasoning that's based on what you see here. Okay, so let's look first at the concept of displacement in relation to metonymy. So we described how language works. Let's clean this up a bit. Take out these terms, just so we're not lost. Okay, time. So we describe how language works, usually in a sequence. So when you are existing in language, then you are happening one at a time, one word or one thought, one day, 1 second, one moment at a time. So metonymy is a trope in language that describes this event, where words have contiguous relationship with the other words. What does that mean? It means that there are associative relationships between the words, and this association isn't based on similarity. It's not based on similarity. It's based on association. So let me put a cross there. So let's say the cat maybe ran after the mouse or something like that. There's this sensibility of the following cat that is rule based, that is contiguous, which means it just makes sense that they follow each other because of the way we had evolved as a collective conventional species. Okay, we have to do it, otherwise we wouldn't understand each other. We have to follow linguistic rules, and contiguity holds those rules in place. So how this linguistic structure applies to psychology is this. Coming back here, this is what displacement brings into the picture in the psychological sense. Displacement is the aspect of language that doesn't arrive at the point. Contiguity would be the recursive use of language that doesn't stop. It doesn't arrive at a point. It actually pushes meaning away in the forward arrow of time. And in psychology, displacement describes the not arriving at the essence, not arriving at the truth, not arriving at what is the meaning of all of it, life, the universe, everything. So in the psychology of Lacan, there's something interesting here. So I was really happy when Sandrine talked about the father. I want to bring up the father and the mother, because there's something quite deep in psychoanalysis that tries to explain what displacement actually means. So displacement needs some sort of starting point, and in Lacan's registers of the real, the symbolic, and the imaginary, say, let's start with the baby. Now, the baby is undivided. The baby is irreducible. The baby is monad. The baby doesn't separate things. So somehow the baby needs to be birthed into language, birthed into displacement. And the first act of displacement in Lacanian theory is the mirror stage. All right, so I think I have a picture here because I was trying to build the PowerPoint, which I did lose. Okay, so here's a baby, nice baby. So the first time, and maybe the second and the third time, the baby kept looking at its own image in the mirror. The mirror stage marks the first separation from the maternal body. Okay. Here's another picture that I would bring up. If you find it still small here. Okay, this is a picture I would prefer. Okay. Yeah, I don't need two of them. The first act of separation. Okay, so when the baby is born, the baby is one, but the unity is in being held in the space where the mother isn't disconnected from the space. The mother is the space itself, and in that space there are no ego boundaries, and there are no linguistic structures. So to be initiated into language itself, there needs to be a loss of symbiotic unity with the mother, which would later on be signified as the first trauma that would then become the first act of displacement. It would become the first act of displacement because what we are yearning for is coming home, a return to the mother. And it is the staring at the mirror where the baby is looking at its own image. Suddenly the baby becomes something other than what it is. Okay. It loses its symbiotic unity, not just with the human mother, but its own body. And its body becomes externalized as its own image. So the first symbol becomes the self image, and the image is not the self. The image becomes a picture. Suddenly, the beauty that was internalized becomes externalized, and what other people might admire as, oh, what a cute baby, what a beautiful baby boy, what a beautiful baby girl. That self concept sponsors how other concepts, other words, other ideas would later on start to signify, to hold, to energize. So that is what displacement is in where is that? In translating what is a linguistic action or directionality, it actually has a point of beginning. It has a point of origin in psychology. So when you think of aspects of trauma, aspects of suffering, of emotion, the question here is, what are we looking for? So if you study psychoanalysis and ideas related to sexuality, the Oedipus complex, I don't know if you know the Oedipus complex, but it's this idea that the human male baby is in love with the mother and wants to destroy the father, and then the human male yeah, anyway, it's just the other, I forgot what I said. Okay, so following this form of displacement where the baby growing up would need to replace the mother, would need to then place itself in the world. Here's the Oedipus riddle. The child then enters the phallic or the symbolic order, where ego boundaries and language structures are cultivated Oedipally in the name of the father. I was born Catholic, so I just had to draw that. I mean, Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I've always wondered where's the feminine there. To me, the Holy Ghost is the feminine. But anyway, the name of the Father is that which displaces upon the maternal body, which was the safe space that the baby could feel one in. So language unto itself is all the names of the Father. The masculine is that which is form, what originally was pure substance. So here we have the separation of the two. Here is where you have mind and body becoming two of the same thing. Here we have the masculine and the feminine becoming two and in the same thing. So this is where some of the more, I would say, archaic. So the origins of psychology has this as a starting point from Sigmund Freud's formulations. Through Lacan, through what would survive from this mode of structuralism. This is where inner dance can join a possible structuralism where we are playlisting the system. So where Jacobson comes in his aphasia essay. So okay, let's say goodbye from Lacan for now. I really just needed to explain to you where the words displacement and condensation would be coming from. Condensation then, in contrast, would be an aspect of psychology and dream that allows us to go back into a possible unity. And this could have only been understood through the concept of metaphor. Now, I've already defined what metonymy means. Metonymy is the contiguity. I never really think that I'm able to speak these words in a training because I feel that people would be running away. But when we have enough time to go over these slowly, then I'm okay that you're still here, that you haven't really shut down and you're not snoring yet. Metaphor is a trope in language that allows us to bring substitutions in all of the possible words that we know, stored in space, so that we can name things. Okay, there are different possible names for the same things depending on which language, what situation, what day, and so on and so forth. So dream condensation is an ability to metaphorize certain things in order to represent that which is a lot. So time allows us to travel in sequence, one at a time, which is quite useful when you think about it as a technology that Spirit created for us to be here and enjoy things one at a time. And dream displacement is a type of dream that allows us to explore things sequentially in time. Okay, dream condensation is a kind of dream that allows us to see things all at the same time. And so in um, the dream theory of Sigmund Freud, he makes a distinction between what he calls manifest and latent. Okay, different uh, modes of interpretation. Manifest would be the interpretation of the dream that's making itself known. Latent is the hidden. It's the hidden. Manifest would be the visible, that which wants to make itself known to us. But there is this hidden aspect of the dream. So I think we would go into coding context slowly as we try to understand where this fits into the inner dance process. So these are terminology we need to use in asking certain questions. So I wish I didn't have to keep traveling in order to create new pages. So that we're not lost, we want to ask, okay, what exactly are we asking here? Hi. Okay. Now, what we're studying here is inner dance. And what we are sensing is when we go into structuralism, what we are studying is that there are different modes of inner dance. There are different inner dance experiences. So when Sofie talks about her inner dance experiences of going into a dialogue without inner dance, people said they actually went into a deeper inner dance process without inner dance. So there is a structuralism there because she's going into an inner dance that's based on dialogue, which holds itself in time whilst also holding space that now starts to sneak into time. Because normally, when you are in dialogue, there is this displacement energy. But because she is coming from the condensation that belongs to the inner dance experience, she's able to sneak that in so that even as she's displacing in words, she's able to create the emotionality, the spiritual experience that's able to represent a lot more, whatever you call it, whether it be the universe, whether it be the cosmos, whether it be love, whether it be pure meaning, that belongs in condensation. So these are structuralist terminologies. And when we study aphasia, if you were to, let's say, bring a science into it, um, because of coding context, you will have a starting point there. You can't go back to Freud, you can go back to Jacobson, you can go back to Lacan. There are many things I can't explain now. I can just keep going. I can just keep going on and on, and I can take up like a whole week and not stop talking about this. I want to finish a conversation that we started with hermeneutics and Russian formalism, because there really is something here. And if we had more time, maybe next year we can just keep going into it. Now, there was a study of meaning, and then there was study of form, and this actually just kept going on and on. So people didn't stop at interpretation. Like linguistics was born, and there were many turns in linguistics, just as there were many turns in psychology. Now, interpretation in psychology in Sigmund Freud was quite interesting because he wrote the book, The Interpretation of Dreams. So still we go back to the dreams, interpretation of dreams. And as you know, Sigmund Freud rested in the unconscious. So there was a lot of mystery there as to what specific dreams meant. Now, linguistics just really went into different turns. Language as a study went into many turns, just like psychology. Let's say psychology, let's mix them up here. Psychology after psychoanalysis went into behaviorism, went into language, went into cognitivism. There were turns into computational language studies. There was constructivism, and something seemingly spiritual that came out of language was out of Noam Chomsky, who also is known as the father of modern linguistics. He called it universal grammar. And the notion in universal grammar was the idea that all humans actually come from the same framing. We have the same network. We're even before you have learned the first word, language was there embedded in you, and it's universally embedded. Okay, the language itself has a DNA. Oops, sorry, shut down. Okay, so I'm back. I need you to take out the case. It just keeps going on, off and on. So what I don't have time to go into is there were form content distinctions. So sometimes people would be studying language as the cup, and there was a study of language as the substance. There was a heightening of the understanding of form in universal grammar. It's called UG, universal grammar. And there was so much excitement that we can actually understand the mind by computing what that grammar is, which was in language. And what I don't have time for today is to describe how this was embattled by a student of Chomsky. His name was George Lakoff, who complained at the fact that why are we trying to understand the mind through grammar? So grammar is based on the rules of the mind when we had not actually understood what the mind was in terms of semantics. There was no structure or structuralism that understood the mind through meaning. Okay, so this whole story, all of these turns were basically trying to understand what the structure of the mind looked like. And where this went was based on the work of George Lakoff. He said there's something missing in all of your formulations. You know, like Chomsky was the celebrated linguist. Like he actually unlocked the code. Like the key to the mind was here in this universal grammar. But Lakoff said you're missing something. You don't have a theory of meaning. And where this is going into inner dance, I hope you're still there. Where this goes into inner dance is Lakoff found the structure of meaning, and the meaning was in the body. So Lakoff founded embodied cognition. And this is a science that would, in fact, reveal that it's in the movements of the body. It is, in fact, in the dance, the motor functions of the body, that allows us to understand how we conceptualize things in the world. Okay, so what is the meaning of this? What makes this important? Which I'm really clumsily trying to arrive at. Here's where form and content distinctions collapse.
Pi, you're not
Yes?
sharing screen.
Oh, sorry. I hope that wasn't such a long time. I guess when the thing went off. Okay, so I went to these. I'm sorry if you didn't see them. This is universal grammar. And so in George Lakoff's work, this would have been the body, and what universal grammar was interested in was mental stuff. Okay, like Noam Chomsky was arriving at, okay, we've unlocked like the DNA, the code to the mind, and it has to do with grammar and rules. But what George Lakoff said was, you don't have a theory of meaning, and the theory of meaning was actually going to land back in the body, because meaning, in accordance to Lakoff, was situated in how we moved our bodies across space. It's actually the dance, our ability to move across the space, that constructs meaning. And this could only have become clear through the brain sciences that would be seen not just as the brain that is at the it's not that this is the brain, but how we perceive the brain was that this was the brain. This is what embodied cognition brought about, that the body is in fact the if the body is form, the body moving provides for content via what you would later on understand without thinking of Jakobson, without thinking of the others. When the body moves, it metaphorizes. We basically start to substitute meanings depending on how the body moves. There are neural interconnections. Every time you move the body, you actually start to create Hebbian learning. You fire neurons together, you wire them together through the dance. So we would then go back to time and space later on in order to perceive how this is working. Here's where study of neurology, linguistics, and psychology actually all come together. So I'm not able to explain this well now because this takes maybe a whole day or a whole week to come across, and I can't really name names unless I'm talking to a theorist who would understand where cultural relativism, linguistic determinism, where all of the different turns were in fact really just form and content separating unto each other, different domains of study. And we didn't really expect that meaning would come back in full force. Inner dance would come back in full force as that which holds meaning. I can only describe this to you. I can't explain this to you right now, but this is where science is at. Science is healing the body and mind. And this line in between is motoric, it's movement. Our hope of understanding meaning is based on our understanding of the dance. So in the Indigo Pulse, we will look at the nature of the movement and we will start to find interpretations of what people call Kundalini through the cognitive sciences. When the body moves automatically, when the body moves spontaneously, there are in fact hermeneutics. There are systems of interpreting what the body is saying. When the arms move a certain way, when the body moves a certain way, there are in fact interpretations within embodied cognition that brings about meaning at its origins. And that's the breaking down of form content distinction. Okay, so in this clumsy way, I'm going to stop there and move back into dream theory. Hopefully you might have questions later on. Doesn't have to be today that clarifies what I'm trying to say. I want it to be clear, but the technology failed me and I actually lost quite a lot of time. So what would be a neural Darwinism that would help us understand this? Because Darwin lacked the neurology, so he had to contend with the idea of the unconscious as the tip of the iceberg, that we can only perceive consciousness as the id, which is maybe 3%, and we would lose 97% the mind. We could never really be conscious of. Okay, so where are we in dream theory that would provide a neural Darwinism? So the current interpretation of this would be called the it's called the activation activation synthesis hypothesis. If you were to look for any brain science that at least tries to explain why dreaming happens. Okay. Now, this is kind of going back to certain things that we've explained before, but this would help to integrate them. Okay, so this is the brain, and this is the brain stem. So here's one tip. When you are holding a body, there are probably these areas that you would normally go for. Okay, some people touch the top of the head, maybe touch the chest, or you touch the solar plexus, which is the sun in the body. Maybe touch the legs or the arms. Do you know where I normally would go? I normally actually go here. This is the part that I would go. It's the behind the neck region, the nape of the neck. And I want to explain why. And it has something to do with the dream. It has something to do with dream theory. There's a hypothesis there. So when people call it Kundalini activation, what do they actually mean? And for many people, activation starts here at the solar plexus. So they go attack that. They would sit on the belly, they would push in the belly, hoping that the Divine Mother would rise up from there. From a neural perspective, when you think about the dream, activation begins here at the back of the neck. Okay, so this goes beyond the basal ganglia conversation that we are often speaking about when we talk about the striatum and dopamine. It still would relate to dopamine, but there's something that sponsors that before it goes into the reptilian brain basal ganglia activation. A lot of that activation happens here at the, let's look for a color. Let's see, can't find blue. So here at the brainstem, the brainstem. And specifically that part of the brainstem, we've named this before. It's called the ARAS, or the activating reticular, ascending reticular activating system, which is a whole bunch of neurons that send out different chemicals. It could be serotonin, it could be acetylcholine. I just want to bring about a neural structuralism that we can work on. There could be dopamine, and then there could be norepinephrine. Now, okay, as a quiz test for those who watch the other calls, and I don't want you to speak the answer, but the question would be if you are cognizant or in remembrance of what has been taken up. When you go into REM state, which chemicals are down? Okay, so we would compare that with non-REM today and wake state. Okay, and then we would use the metaphor of Goldilocks to perceive what is happening, like where. All right. So serotonin, as we know, serotonin is at its lowest, and norepinephrine as at its lowest when we are in the REM state. Okay, when we're dreaming, we looked at the reasoning as to why that is. Serotonin and norepinephrine creates attachment levels, so that when you're awake, there's more desiring, there's more wanting or needing certain things to happen. And when you're dreaming, that should not be. That activity, that level of activity needs to lower down. So there's something that happens in non-REM states that brings us into that mode. It might take us a while to understand this, but let's begin to speak about this now because we're in the blue call. So let's make a chart here. Wake state. non-REM, and REM. If this is too complex, it's really just about asking questions if you're not clear about something later on. Okay, so let's go back to the idea of the activation synthesis hypothesis, and let's try to make this connotative of what do you call this, of Sigmund Freud. Okay, so in terms of latent and manifest dream reality. So the activation happens in the brainstem, and the synthesis part happens in the cortex. So here is where we might see certain activity happening in the frontal cortex, the frontal lobe. And here's where we might see a lot of activity happening here at the occipital lobe. And there might be some activity as well happening in the thalamus. I hope you don't mind we go back into brain parts today. I don't want to stay abstract. I'd like to go into the concrete. So the frontal lobe, you know, is responsible for attention and decision making, and the occipital lobe is responsible for vision, like seeing images. The thalamus, as you well know, is the input-output gating mechanism that receives sensory information from smell to sight to sounds. It's as you remember, it's like the bus station, it's like the airport. So when you're dreaming, obviously the thalamus needs to be shut down in a way that you're not receiving inputs from the outside world, so that you're not disturbed, right? You're sleeping. The bus station needs to shut down in a way, but this is to help you understand when you're dreaming, the bus station is actually very much alive. It's just not functioning as an input output device. It starts to have different roles. So there are interesting brain waves that are coming into view in the neurosciences, and I'd like you to look at the PGO waves, okay? Because we've been studying gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta waves. Let's go to Wikipedia. PGO waves would be pontogeniculo-occipital waves. Ponto being the brainstem part. The geniculo would be the thalamus, and the occipital would be, yeah, from the occipital cortex. This is the particular brainwave of dreaming. So when you bring someone into inner dance, what you are activating is the PGO waves. Maybe it's enough for you to understand that there are special waves that don't show up in any other instance as when you are dreaming, and it's called the PGO waves. It shows up during REM sleep and right before REM sleep. So why is this important? This is what the PGO waves do. They are in charge of, I need to make this slower. I mean smaller. Okay, I need to make this smaller. So the amine chemicals would be what it sounds like: dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. And the choline neurotransmitters is what it sounds like. It's acetylcholine. Acetylcholine. The amine would be dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. So if you remember the aras section of the body, all of these are sent out from the brainstem. So my advice to you is, when you are touching the back of the head, depending on what music you are using, you don't need to literally touch it. In fact, the main insight Francois gives us is when you go deeper into music, it's actually better that you don't touch people. But if you do decide to touch people, touching people at the back of the head is touching the source. This would bring activations from everything from the hypothalamus to the pineal gland, the pituitary, the amygdala, the frontal cortex, the basal ganglia, whether it be emotion, whether it be the reptilian brain, whether it be the hippocampus memory, whether it be the nucleus accumbens to do with movement. Touching the back of the head sends the signals. It is actually in a way the sponsoring space. And I wanted to bring up Goldilocks. You remember Goldilocks? So let's say the bigger circle would be Papa Bear. So let's just base it inside. Like Papa Bear is big. Mama Bear would be like in the middle. You remember Goldilocks, like with the porridge in the bed. Baby Bear would be this cute little dot here. Mama Bear, it's a symbolize it as the circle with a dot. Okay, so it's like just right. It's the one in the middle. So I want to give you the code. It took me quite a while to understand this myself, and I haven't really brought this up in trainings before. Remember what would be small? What would be small in the REM state? Okay, this is a review. What would be lowest in REM state? It's norepinephrine and serotonin. And what are those? Those are amines. So what would be lowest in REM state would be the amines. And what is normally the most awake is also the amines, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. So when people are in non-REM state, that's Mama Bear right there. Okay, so acetylcholine, as you know, is the main neurotransmitter for the parasympathetic nervous system. It's responsible for rest and digest. So let's look at the size of the cholinergic action when it comes to wake, non-REM, and REM. So remember, this is current science. This is actually very new findings. And there are still elements quite unknown about this, but this is what is known for now. And this is relevant because this is what you are facilitating in inner dance. Choline would be at its smallest in non-REM state. In REM state, it's actually when it's the highest. And in wake state, it would be Mama Bear, okay? So I want to interpret this so it might make sense here. Why are these circles there? Okay, I don't think most of you will understand what this means. It takes further discussions, but I still want to give you the code as to what the time and space matrix actually looks like, because Freud is readdressed here. Like a lot of the initial interpretation of dreams in Freud, in fact, is debunked and reconstituted in the current science. So a lot of our understandings of dream, which should be here in the REM period, are the images or the dream images, or concepts that you see when you're dreaming. So when you study this, there are already insights here based on what we understand around these neurotransmitters, starting from, let's say, serotonin and norepinephrine, and maybe a little bit of dopamine. The question is, why do we dream? What is the technology of dream? This is just to help you to playlist, like in the long term. Train your mind a little bit how to do this. Your body would know what to do. So when you're dreaming, here, serotonin is down, norepinephrine is down. Dopamine isn't actually so down. There's some dopaminergic processes happening here. But the PGO waves are quite interesting because they happen in pulsations. So they're oscillating. So in the oscillation, the amine and choline drugs would basically be going up and down in snippets. So what dreaming does is basically quite ironic, because even though serotonin and norepinephrine needs to go down, dreams are in fact when there are these very small, quick, like residues, when uh, like the amines would still be pulsing in the brain, particularly in the occipital lobe and the frontal cortex. And what that brings about is beta wave activations. So you know what beta waves are. Beta waves are what we need to concentrate, when we are awake. So here's something ironic. When you study, this is a well-known fact, that when you study people with depression, people with depression experience REM state very early in sleep stages. So early REM. Not just that, they experience long REM. So this might change the way you understand dream in a way, because there's some paradox here. It's like, okay, that doesn't make sense, Pai. If REM is supposed to be a healing the transformative uh, brain state, why is it that in depression we actually have early and long REM stages? So in fact, when you deprive depression patients from REM state, they actually feel better. They actually feel a recovery or healing happen. And so the current interpretations in the science in this is based on the fact that people with depression, when they are awake, they are usually emotionally aroused. Their emotions are aroused, and their autonomic nervous system is quite activated. So when they go to sleep, all of this emotion needs to discharge. It needs to discharge. And the way it discharges is dream. So dreaming in depression is a discharging of negative or highly charged, aroused emotions. So this has a lot to say about playlisting process, because there's something quite autopoetic and allopoetic about this. The more you create this discharge elements, and I'm sure you've met people who have gone into intense energy work who eventually experience some kind of depression. This still goes into playlisting in extreme, intense, sequential elements, because sequential playlisting still is displacement based. And as you know, displacement pushes meaning away. In dream theory, dream displacement is the moment you have many dreams following each other, dream upon dream upon dream upon dream. Now, dream condensation is described as different. I asked Italy to send me a copy of a page from a book that I had in Maya, because I'm not in Maya right now, and it's quote. It has their quote by dream scientist called Richthofen. By the single-mindedness of dreams, he means the strong tendency for a single train of related thoughts and images to persist over extended periods without disruption or competition from other simultaneous thoughts and images. Okay, so he's talking about displacement here with but he is also talking about condensation because of the single-mindedness of dream. What he means about the single-mindedness of dream is when you are dreaming, when you're in the REM state, when something weird is happening, you don't question it. Okay? It may be like you're another person, or you're looking at a specific symbol, and you're not it. So let's say you're like a mom, and suddenly you become like a dad. Say you're a child, and then suddenly you dream yourself as an alien or as like an animal. When you're dreaming that, you don't doubt that you're dreaming that. So the condensation in the dream helps to hold that lack of doubt, so that in fact when you're awake, you're probably doubting a lot more than when you are sleeping. And it is here. Let's go back here. It's the choline. It's the cholinergic, and as well GABA. It's the delta state that allows for that single-minded persistence, which in non-REM is brought about by, let's say, GABA would be the big circle. And it allows for the muscular paralysis that prepares you for seeing things. Okay, so low amine, but big choline, which means, as you remember, choline is the parasympathetic drug, which is a downer, but the downer is actually going up. So it's choline and GABA. So this is the irony when you're trying to trigger people while they're dreaming, when you're touching them too much, when you are trying to use songs that would activate and to make them cry, you are in fact emitting a lot of beta wave activity. And what the dreamer is doing is, let's go back to here. The synthesis part is happening in the frontal lobe. It is in fact forcing an interpretation that brings it back into the mind, brings it back into the thinking process, brings it back into where it was when it was awake. And if left alone, the activation synthesis wouldn't really be from a displacement field. This is where dream theory in Freud doesn't actually mean anything, because the dream is really just a system of interpretation that is, in fact, bringing wakefulness into the sleep consciousness. If sleep consciousness is trying to bring you into code, still retaining wake state consciousness while you're sleeping, in fact, brings you back into context. It brings you back into systems of interpretation. And so there's a new playlisting system that could come out of this. And the reason why I talked about depression patients is when you deprive depression patients of REM state, why is it that healing happens? Because what depression patients are looking for is non-REM sleep. What they need is, within non-REM sleep, there are different stages of non-REM. What they're looking for is particularly non-REM 3, which is slow wave sleep. So if you're working with people who are experiencing high arousal, remember high arousal, autonomic nervous system, a lot of emotions, this well-known science is speaking, what people are needing is SWS. I don't know if you have an app that tells you where you're at. Like this is my app. Do oh, there's no data. It's not synchronized. Okay, so this is me last night. So I know the exact time I woke up. It's because I actually started to do some notes for the day. So I have an idea where I am every night, and probably a lot of you follow your sleep patterns. So depending if I'm doing like a Zoom call or I would actually wake up and one of the first things I check is like how much did I get of REM and deep sleep, and then uh, how many times did I wake up, and I'm starting to perceive specific patterns in my playlist in my own brain that thinks about this. So I'm going to stop here primarily as the science actually stops here. I'm bringing you some insight as to substantiating when we do inner dance, which is metaphorized by the playlisting process. Why are we moving more towards like space, or why would we work within time? Okay, like I'm not making a choice as to what is better. I present this depression instance for you just so you can see one instance at work. Like there would be a lot of people walking into this space who are not depressed, and maybe they need a whole different mechanism. So you would go back to this. You would study this further. This is really just an entry point, and there are many neurotransmitters and hormones that I don't outline here. I'm simplifying it with in amines and choline because this is what is more well known. One of the amines that I didn't write here was histamine. So these are the chemicals that keep us awake. And when they're released while in dream state, that's why we are waking up in sleep. So you can actually control waking patterns within sleep. Do you see the technology? Dreaming is a new technology based on current neurological findings. It seems to be something that wasn't quite there when our neocortex wasn't so evolved. And it seems to be telling us that REM state consciousness is what allows us to stay awake. Like over a long period, we were hibernating. We were actually sleeping before we woke up as organisms, as species, and we had to find a way to wake up. So that's why it's so easy to drop into sleep, because that's the origins of consciousness. And we cannot push that away. Remember the quotation by David Folks. What makes this quotation interesting is prior to thinkers like Folks and Sigmund Freud, dreaming was anomalous perceiving. It's accidental. It's just something that happens, and it's not worth studying. But what comes through the spiritual experience today is a structuralism of sleep and wake through the theory of what actually is the dream space. Okay, so I really just messed up your mind, and I don't mind, because this is where we're at. These are the bits and pieces. These are um, these are the frames of reference that we have to work with. And if any of these interest you, then you could do your own research. You could converse more, ask me what would be the things to read, starting points, whether you looked at the older starting points on dream theory, and where are we at concurrently. We will be updating the website soon, so that we would be more able to provide you a better wiki um, system that organizes these loose elements together. But we haven't actually updated the wiki yet because there are so many other things that demand attention that's being studied in relation to the nervous system and the and our rhythms and music theory and so on and so forth. Okay, so I want to open the space. Really took my time. It's 3:30 here, so 1, 2, 2, 3:30. So it's only an hour and a half, is it?
Just request
Mm.
Sophie to unmute. Sophie.
Go ahead.
No. Sophie, can you unmute? I've been messaging you for a while.
Hi, I can maybe start. Um, just a quick one because just today I was looking at the chart, the history of the playlist, and I've always been interested in understanding the difference of feedbacks that we were getting over the years and how we were building the playlist as well. And there is something you mentioned that really maybe helped me click because I've noticed how there is in the chart in the first years, there is more of the psychosis and all of that. And really the, understanding how linearity works and how we are like, how the relationship between, maybe I was trying to see like the relationship between sequential elements and psychosis and high levels of dopamine and other things that lead, or high levels of cortisol, everything that stimulates that lead to that eventful moment in the person's life. And how after my noise, or after we started with the new waves and new way of playlisting, there have been less of that. So I was curious today if that was related to sequential in a way, or to time in a way. And there is something you mentioned about the displacement and how, like, understanding the brain of depression, that maybe, like, it sparkled something in me. I really don't have anything more than that, but it really sparkled because it spoke to that question.
It's totally it. That's totally it. This is what we're talking about. We have been looking at this matrix of time and space. I've been talking about this maybe for about 10 years, at least. And I've been studying the neurologies and psychologies around this. The noise app was just happening on its own, layering things in that way without the emotive, manipulative quality of the songs. It really just wanted to somehow show up. Now, when we started to use the synthesizers, though, it's almost like we saw something within the delta state that was holding something a lot higher, that allowed us to still hold emotions, time elements, displacement, but was able to hold like a lot more information. So I think holding synthesizers with the noise, and then still, we can still go back to the songs like once in a while, but being able to play with a wider vocabulary um, helps us to understand how even the matrix that we're drawing is way too simple. There's like a tesseract or a hypersphere or hypercube there, where there are, like crosses within the crosses, or triangles within the triangles, that are being accessed by people who sometimes would either describe that as I felt nothing, but I know I went somewhere that was dreamlike and I can't interpret it. I'm not being given like something to hold on to. There's something a lot deeper that's being processed that feels like a brain surgery and feels like I'm going into an inception time. Um, like I want to describe aphasia, for example. Like a lot of people are experiencing this light language thing. And a lot of that is coming about usually through the sequential playlisting. It's coming from the song jumping. So it's not just song after song. It's more to do with jumping into extreme tempo rhythms, harmonies that reroute the dopamine structure from attention, emotion, and memory into the basal ganglia, which just explodes into something that can lead to a kind of psychosis. It can lead to aphasia that definitely can bring about in habituated ways like the light language thing. This is something we're not seeing so much anymore. If we're seeing it in Maya, it's because people are coming from that style that's happening outside. So when I observed aphasia through time, I saw two forms. So this still brings us back into Jacobson. I would either see people going into light language, so a lot of you know what that is. Now, light language would be the rearrangement of all of these morphemes and phonemes, these sounds into weird combinations, right? Those are the letters. Now, I've seen people go into the same type of aphasia or psychosis, but they weren't mixing up the sounds. They were mixing up the words. Do you understand the difference? They were, but they were doing it in an alien intelligent manner where it actually still made sense. They didn't sound like Yoda. They were able to speak really, really fast in a way that you couldn't follow them. It was like there was this channeling and they were speaking so ahead of time. And that's something you do see in light language, right? It's like you want to slow it down because it's like a runaway train. It's now going into next week and not today anymore. And you want to hold it back because it's anticipating, it's spreading out so fast and so far that it's not here right now in the present moment. It's not here in the room. So that could happen in a way that's hyper aware, where people actually can write the messages down. So that's a whole different playlist system. That's coming about from what Francois might be coming up with. What I've not seen that often. I can count the number of people I've seen get to do that, and I know what they did in terms of what they might have ingested in their body continuously, what kind of sounds they were, or some of their backgrounds. There's a particular culture or particular um, uh, experience that's been stored in the body that can bring that about. But there is a particular set of techniques that can actually bring people there. A lot of that is evolutionary. It's super duper exciting, but these are also in my memory some of the scariest, most disruptive. um it doesn't really hold itself so well in a social space because it's hard to speak to. It starts to get to a point where the people around the space who aren't in that dimension, they get very, very triggered and they get very, very scared, and they would start to interpret that as, you can only imagine what they would see because it doesn't look like a person anymore. What that is doing, I don't specifically have a problem with that per se if that was happening in a vacuum or in an eco village where people are used to it. I have a problem with that because I know that other people have problems with it when they're in that particular space. So I'm thankful that that's happening. I'm thankful I've seen that I'm also thankful that the kinds of sounds that we are constructing doesn't really emit those levels that people would end up in, like hospitals and like spaces, even prisons, and so on and so forth. I think there's something about the activation of arousal that needs to go higher. It needs to go higher in a way that's actually less triggering. So the Noise app was a really good intuitive tool, and I hope people can still keep using that if they have access to it. For those who weren't here at the beginning of the call, I was explaining that the new Noise app doesn't allow layering anymore. What you actually get is sequencing, because you can't play 5 sounds at a time anymore. You can only do 1 at a time. So you're back into a kind of song per song. It's just sound based. So I think we should still keep experiencing that, but we should take in the feedback of where things are kind of possible. So in Maya, it's still quite experimental. We've only started to do this in the last maybe three years. But we are seeing that space is being represented in a way that's not conceptual so much anymore. I don't know if this helps to bring some understanding. We're going into uncharted territory in this blue space. Brendan had some notions of these in the last call. I don't know if he can explain this a little bit more, but he's experiencing this body. Maybe some others are also experiencing this in their body, but it might be explaining the becoming space of time that I probably wanted to explain a little bit more in Jacques Derrida and Heidegger, and coming from Aristotle all the way to inner dance, but I don't have the space and I don't have the vocabulary in my brain right now to do that. Maybe Brendan, you can try to word this again as you so successfully did in the last call, which wasn't so populated.
It's so hard to put it into words. I feel really confused, and I'm just coming.
Your volume seems to be a bit low. I don't know if it's just me.
Is that better?
No, Brendan, you have to go nearer to your mic.
Could be the distance, but it could be it's your microphone.
Yeah. Let's put some headphones on today.
No, it's not coming through though. Like you won't come in clear. It's not sorted. It's either you try something out and we can give you time, and then we can hear from others. For now. All right. So anyone wants to hold a question or a share while he's fixing his sound? Around what to share today that's coming from the notes. I don't know if it makes sense to any of it.
Can I ask a question about psychosis? I had a psychologist today for an inner dance session, and she is suffering a lot of panic attacks lately. And she was really afraid to go in the session. And it was the first time that I had to finish the session, because after 50 minutes, she was really screaming, and it was like she was going in a psychosis. So yeah, it was the first time also for me. And now I hear you saying it can trigger psychosis or light language. So yeah, I don't know if I have such experiences again, if it's a good thing to to offer an inner dance session.
It's hard to define what is an inner dance session, because there is the sense of how we used to do it globally that was more the explosive, and the use of these techniques that are disrupting, like hopping from slow to fast, fast to slow, has this way of shifting dopamine routing that partially affects. So psychosis as a subject has to do with, it has a lot to do with prolactin. Prolactin, either in the increase or decrease, any imbalance with prolactin that's extreme can lead to schizophrenia or psychosis. And because dopamine inhibits prolactin, then too much in a continuous way, if people had a tendency, they might have, I don't want to use psychosis specifically, because in general there are other modes of imbalance, and for me psychosis is really just a word. There are spiritual understandings of psychosis, and these situations really only become problematic because people live in society. If people were in a spiritual construct, um, we really need to clarify to people that if anyone enters the space, you need to take responsibility that what shows up is yours. And when people lose the element of trust, then that means there isn't that sense of responsibility. Because I have personally been through the most extreme possible, unimaginable things, then I trust that there is something in the human that can go into these spaces, and if they are able to, then they will be forever changed. So that was my original paradigm that somehow I still hold today, but I do hold a lot of care, because I realize that there is this question: do you really have to go there in order to make something of this? And I do understand a lot of you belong to cultures where this is not going to be seen as a good thing. So when you say, I don't know if I should do inner dance, we can't proceed this in a categorical way. That when we say, I don't know if I should do inner dance, like what do we mean structurally? Do you mean something that would go into an extreme polarization between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system that can the reason why people want to disrupt or interrupt is so that there could be an erupt. The reason why people want to break down is because there could be a breakthrough. So those people who are used to doing that, either through psychedelics, either through other spiritual modalities that allows their autonomic nervous system to go into these extreme states. And those are the ones who are more willing to take responsibility because they've had a glimpse of what's there. And, there are other people who are not that. So I think we're more or less going into this with more care. So the activations, the techniques that we're sharing with people are a lot more gentle and organic, a lot slower. Facilitators, I think, should have their own discernment, though, in terms of knowing what their people can take. So I'm really glad that you're honest about it, that you're in your own environment. There are people who are maybe in the age of anxiety and would like something a lot more gentle. So what we shared about the Noise app is it's not good news that the new version of the app is not going to allow us to hold um, that technique that has helped so many to hold an inner dance that was so much more gentle, so much more like planetary, so much more not personalizing, but going into the cosmos, and like being able to transcend the stories that have a way of circulating. um I think that's why we're bringing up these possible new forms, and I think this is urgent. There's probably a lot of people who have the noise app, the old noise app system that can allow you to use that uh those sets of techniques that we've enjoyed over the years, and we've taken that for granted. It's just that for those who are conducting trainings right now and will be assisting other facilitators, we can't just say, okay, this is what I'm doing, because they can't download that anymore. We actually need practice modes, and we are using music that could emerge out of the system itself, either by creating new platforms. For now, we need to work with what we have, and like we're sort of groping around in the dark, because with the kind of work that we're doing, there are infinite variations of what could be usable. um, there are reasons why people are doing things in similar fashion as other people are doing, which is copy pasting. It's because it works out there, it's popular, it seems to be doing something to people's bodies, and that sets up expectation and conditioning. But those conditionings are possibly what leads to some of the problem areas anyway, because the intensity in the world, with or without the work, it's going to be building up. It was already built up in the first place. So I think it depends on us. What is our intention? What are we trying to do? And a lot of that would only come from, like, how do we understand this thing that we're doing? That is why we're studying. Like we need vocabulary, we need frameworks in order to get to this. And then when you do talk to actual psychiatrists, practitioners, psychologists, they do have their tools, but the kind of thing that we're doing, it is something else to get all together. And there is a reason why they are interested in what we're doing. It's because it seems to be working in ways that what they're doing is also not working as fast or as deep. So I'm bringing all these notes from the brain sciences, from those who do understand how the mind kind of works, for those who understand the energy. Bringing all these together is the structuralism that we're talking about. So we don't have answers. We don't actually have answers. What we have are possibilities. So we take it slowly. But my advice is usually just don't lose your trust. People would feel where you're coming from. And there's this one instance in Sharon is here, for example, like she had this inner dance in South Africa where she used a playlist that was still the old inner dance style. And this woman kind of got triggered. She said, like, now I can't go to sleep. Are you responsible for this? I need an explanation. That actually became a chance for Sharon to go into the context with that person, and that's providing an opening. So I think for you to have ways of explaining this as well to a psychiatrist who you're now in conversation with, that's why we're doing this, for you to be able to give her something that she might feel safe. The more context there is, and that's what makes Sophie's sharing quite important. Like in Belgium, people demand context. Like she herself would state that she wasn't going as deep when the context wasn't so clear. But when she started to understand what this was, the fear, the resistance, some of the blockages started to melt away. So the new inner dance structure that I would like to see in the world is, we don't need to keep inviting people to lay down for the sake of doing it, because it's being branded as a healing process, and that something might happen that we don't know. I think we might find it interesting to give more to people so that they would feel safe. That let's just see what's going to happen. Just lay down and close your eyes and let's see what might happen. I think it would help the facilitators as well to hold more safe space, which is a space of understanding that this is not just mysterious anymore, but this is actually like a kind of school where we're all exploring like what we are. So rather than sometimes it does lead to judgment when people are expected to lay down, and sometimes when expectations are there, or like when they're not experiencing anything, they're like they get stuck with this idea. They walk away from the space with this idea that I'm blocked. There's something wrong with me because I just came from a room where everyone is screaming, crying, and nothing happened to me. So I'm not energetically flowing because there's no explanation being given. It's really just like an energy work that's supposed to bring about this spontaneous movement of the body that brings about an instantaneous awakening process that is just going to bypass all of my trauma just like that, like super duper fast. For me, one of the things that we are trying to heal is the lack of contextualization of the world, whether it be when we went to school, when it comes to religion, when it comes to family systems. When were we given like a whole systems understanding of the world? Like, because the inner dance is a whole systems experience, but what about a whole systems um like knowing? So I think we could slowly do that, like a dialogue could start. And I would be really glad if people gathered in living rooms. You know, you don't need to pay for that yoga space that you need to schedule. People could be in a living room, and then you might be there with them, and then we're not teaching, we're facilitating, we're asking certain questions, we're providing some helpful information. And instead of people um all going into the nonverbal, actually being able to experience the energy in this way, there could be a percentage, maybe like a percentage shift. Maybe if right now in many spaces it's 100% energy, no one's allowed to speak, then maybe it's 20% allowed to speak, allowed to ask questions, 80% energy. Maybe in some communities it's 50-50. What Sofie is describing is like 100% contextualization first for some people who have never experienced it. And she's saying it's actually taking people a lot deeper within 5 minutes. What Francois is demonstrating is the 20-minute session is a lot more powerful than a 2-hour session. So a bit at a time even is quite interesting. You know, why does it need to be an hour, which might be more displacing as opposed to helping people to inch their way into self-awareness. I'm ready. I don't know about a lot of you, but I'm ready to see new forms. And I would love for you to be part of that sense of innovation, because we are learning more. There's actually so much known about this already that we all share. So new practice because of the new knowing. Thank you. This is a beautiful question, and it unravels a lot for us. Don't worry. Just don't lose your trust. You believe in you. You believe in them. It's all spirit speaking to itself. Who would like to raise their hand? Let's try out Brendan. Maybe you fix. I see you're not wearing the thing anymore. Maybe your laptop might work.
Yeah, in the last call, looking at, I guess the point I was trying to get across is when I'm listening to a playlist that's got familiar songs that you'd hear on the radio, for example, And then you go to the share and the circle and the meeting point. While others are speaking, you're sort of conceptualizing from familiar stories of the past, how you related to that song and the memories that brings up. And that's going through your mind as you're listening to others. You're not really listening to others. You're not listening to their story as you, because you're still conceptualizing how you're going to express yourself when it's your turn to speak. And I found as we come more into music that has less distractions, I'd say, or familiarities in songs, there's for me, there's like a drop in away when I go to share. I just don't have the words for it. And almost like to the point, like I guess that's why there's aphasia is coming up. I guess in the playlist where there's a lot of familiar songs and spaces where it's just sound, music, without words. There's a bit of it's like it's a bit like shimmering. You're like shimmering from the familiar, but you could explain, and shimmering to the unfamiliar, but it couldn't explain where light language or something might come out. But now it's more just on the go sound, noise, whatever you want to describe it as. There's less of that shimmering. It's all just raw expression. So when you go for this one, when you go into the circle and share, I'm not thinking of past to conceptualize that experience, because there is no conceptualization. So I can just fully feel the person speak and feel their experience, and it sort of seems to multiply. But and then I'm going, the initial times I did inner dance, the magic was that craziness or the movement on the mat. But that experience was cut short so quickly, because like even on the mat you start going, okay, what was that? What color did I see? And you're already making up stories before you leave the mat to share the experience. But then now it went from that position where I've been on the mat, it's just moving, and all of a sudden it's finished. Like time didn't even, it was all just happening at once. And then you go share, and it's a lot raw, really raw, because you don't even have the words to express it sometimes. But then it's just come lately, like the true magic's not on the mat or in the sharing as such. It's that silence in between. Is that? I'm looking at that. Is that magic in not before music, before the sound? Is that where the real magic is? Where time lapses infinity? It's so there's nothing to hold you back from just dropping and dropping and dropping, because you're just transcending all those previous. There's nothing to conceptualize anymore. I guess it's all just completely rebirthing. Yeah. And even that silence is just a split second, but it can be such a deep connection with whoever you're sharing it with. Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to get at in a sense.
Thank
I
you.
don't have much more to add. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, that's a starting point. That's an orange space that allows us to come into a blue room where intersubjectivity or society is in this communion where we're building a better world. So a lot of us would share this experience that there's something about language that is confusing. Like a lot of people get into trouble because of what they say or what they don't say, what other people say, and how we react to what other people are saying. in that the orange in inner dance would be like a teacher, so that we're not always having to respond. We don't have to always emote. Sometimes we do need to react in a way that's releasing, like reacting in a different way, reacting not in a repressed way, but in an authentic way. But there is something beyond that as well. And that's where you're speaking from, a system of non-interpretation in a world where there's just so much interpretation exactly at this time of the year. It's going to be a lot more like next year. But we can't stay in that non-interpretation that's simply orange. There still needs to be something constructive, something social, something that still goes back to language that is not confusion, which probably would still be coming from that like empty space. We are seeing some separation still that could come from jumping in and out. Like if it's still a workshop, that means that what happens outside, and that's what you're saying, like something outside of the workshop is not anymore what's inside that spiritual space. So then that's not spiritual anymore. And then you just jump back and forth, jump back and forth. Something I do hope to see, and I'm trying to express this. For me, someone who holds the space is regarded as an energy healer, a facilitator, someone who brings about the silence. But I really am not seeing so much the difference anymore between someone who holds energy and someone who holds knowledge. So, taking Evie's example, for instance, there are a lot of people who are laying down and they've gone deep. Sometimes there's a tendency to try to repeat that, and that would be a fine line between having, being, and wanting and needing. Like people who are experience seeking are somehow priming themselves up for a loop, not understanding the dopamine structure in the pleasurable blissing out into smithereens, into the nowhere. So sometimes when people do go deep, they have questions like, what was that? Like, what's that? We could leave them in their emptiness, and then when they go back into the world, they would still have access to their psyche, what they were perceiving paradigmatically before they entered space. And from experience, that can actually conflate. There could be a confabulation. People can, psychosis would be making up stories, hypersensitivity. Today is not today anymore. It's all the days crashing into one room. So dialogue is the grounding experience of being able to not just experience this by yourself, but actually being able to spread this out in community so that it's not just a mystical thing. What I want to share with people that I've experienced, like the gift inner dance brought me was the grounding. It wasn't just going into the cosmos and being like an energy body. It was actually what taught me to be a better dad. That's what I value the most. But teaches me to be a better partner, be a better son, be a better friend, be so and because it's a really complex world, like we're going into this age of dopamine, consumptive, wanting it fast, wanting it big, wanting it wild, wanting it like instantaneous, not anymore often being able to do the slow work, to put in the hours a day at a time, one day at a time, one day at a time. For me, the only way I can describe it, if I could put words into it, is all the many things need to become like a one thing. Like how I conduct the schooling system for my son, like because I'm in charge now of my schooling system for my son. He's not in school anymore. So I conduct a curriculum for him, but the curriculum that I get from inner dance would be that he needs to learn by himself. So I would take the inner dance structure and I would apply that. It's totally still inner dance, like everything that I'm giving him is coming from the inner dance philosophies and theories and experience without him having to lay down and close his eyes. So he's now activating his brain and he's learning. So how I am with my daughters would be the same. How I am with so if I have like 100 things to do in one day, it all has to be one thing. So I'm doing 100 things, but all those things are one thing. And I think it's appropriate that Brendan speaks because that's permaculture for me. It's how to manage a garden. A garden is a salad or a collection of many, many elements that needs to harmonize as one thing. So I think where a lot of people are suffering and what they want to break is that it's a transition. They're in a transition process, an awkward transition. Like there's a separation between what they do as work, what they do as passion, what they do for fun. This is what I mean. That's maybe a very simple way of understanding that if what you're doing as your occupation, what you're doing as your spiritual life, what you're doing as your as a parent, if they're still separate, there's a part of you that would still feel dissonant because it's not yet like a one thing. So then when you look at my one story where I was so tired of that I just gave everything up. I lived in solitude. I said, fuck it. I don't care anymore. I'm going to let go. And in all that chaos, I really just took my time to reorganize everything. So when people study the playlist is the same thing. The brain state, language, and all the same thing. It's all about organizing. It could be the universe, yourself, or the world around you. How could we apply that in a world that seems so organized, but actually needs a certain amount of chaos in order for a reorganization to take place? Uh, so language is kind of key because language is where we grow. That's why the orange needs to shift into the blue. The orange is the regression. And then what happens in the blue, every time we go back into intersubjectivity, every time we try to resonate with, okay, what do we agree with? We're not even agreeing in the same terms yet. Is it this or is it that? Like what would be taking many steps back so that all of these things can fit. We can allow for all of it to fit. I was just talking to a whole bunch of people these last weeks on them asking me, what's your take now on Kundalini Pi? Because a lot of people are taking up inner dance trainings and then they're still calling it a Kundalini activation thing. My answer to that is I don't mind. I don't mind. It's because when those two are in conversation, that's actually when we start to see like each other's sides, and then that's how we get to a point from an outside perspective and see there's something a lot bigger that is not inner dance or Kundalini, but something a lot bigger, which is called consciousness, planet, universe that wants to make its way here. It becomes petty when we collapse it back to the word, the brand, the thing. It becomes like a thing, that which is an entity that is sentient. We lose the point. It's it takes us nowhere. It's still how we've been doing it for God knows how long. So language needs to shift, not a speech. There needs to be a dimensionality, a uh, 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 an experience of the structure that's inception based. It's like these layers within layers that has been on Earth for a very long time. We cannot just be a baby, because sometimes a baby becomes babyish, which is childish. We have to mature now. We have to grow up because we know now how to grow like down. So I think if there was something at ease in what I'm saying now, because we can see the daunting, like, wow, that's like quite a lot to take in, like all that historicity of the world. We need to learn how to prioritize. We need to have the spiritual way of transacting what really is important right now. Because right now, there's a whole lot of exposure that we're allowing ourselves every day that's not actually doing much. It's going in circles. So a lot of the spiritual processes are in fact being used to go into escape routes. You know, we're still opening a lot of escape pods so that we could just keep looping and looping and looping. We have to break free from that. Like we started this sharing with Francois. When you translate that French name um, into English, it means free man. Francois in English means free man. So after his playlisting, he's going to be living in the jungle for, I don't know, for some months, eating a coconut diet because that for him is priority. I'm not saying we should all do that. We're probably going to destroy the forest if we all move into the jungle. It's merely symbolic. But that, I think, speaks a lot to us around what does it mean to help the planet, because we're consuming, we're eating the world, and now we're eating the energy work. There's a lot of styles in holding this energy that's very dopaminergic. So being able to speak after what Brendan spoke, there is an aspect of this energy that transcends the consumptive. And even if we don't totally understand it, just being able to speak about it, to hold it in the space, to honor that new transcendent reality. It's, for me, it's actually the post-human. In my experience, when I became energy, it's like we're aliens. We're like living on light. We've gotten over a lot of this loopiness that's really fun at the moment, but it's actually getting boring, and it's not doing much for the planet. It's not doing much for our bodies. It's we've been there, and we can just move on. Like we can change our DNA structure. We can change the nature of our nervous systems, our minds and bodies. But we're having a hard time to say goodbye. It's like we are quite attached, and that attachment is still to go back to what Brendan is saying. A part of that is saying it's still based on the way we're thinking. And if you were to believe in Lacanian psychoanalysis, structuralism gave us this notion that language structures the unconscious. The unconscious is structured like a language. So the inner dance brings some level of hope, because before we find a new language, the nonverbal is more universal right now. Until we can speak from the depths of having been on Earth for a long time, stay in that like a core space, stay in that non-speaking space for a while until something grows out of that has been here, you know. So expose yourself to school, like the energy school. Allow the energy to teach you. Allow the energy to be the classroom. Allow the energy that is you to be the student that's learning from itself. And you would be surprised at how you would wake up from your sleep and realize that the confusing thing that I was trying to draw out in that mapping between wake, non-REM, and REM is this. There's a lot of people when they watch the the sleep apps, what they're looking for is okay, I didn't experience REM enough. I need to experience more REM. Now, understanding that longer REM happens late in the evening, which is usually when you remember your dreams the most. I think what we need to be looking for right now is longer slow wave sleep. What we're lacking is longer non-REM 3. We're not experiencing GABA or delta enough, because the findings are what makes it REM is still snippets of beta consciousness like slipping in. That's why it seems like you're awake. You're still processing things that was there when you were awake, when you should actually be enjoying being nothing, being in space and not being time, because that's already what you were doing most of the 24 hours. So I think an inner dance that focuses on SWS, that focuses on deep delta is what is coming. And based on the playlisting style, what could usher that is high, very high gamma. It's to a lot of ears, it's going to sound like noise. Some people might get irritated by that a little bit, but when you get acclimatized to it, it's going to disappear. It's going to become the energy of white, you know, when you're not reacting to it anymore. One of the definitions of music is um, it's when you organize it in a way that you reduce the layers so that it doesn't sound noisy to you anymore. So it taught the brain to become more and more selective. And what we lost in that was linguistic diversity. And with that loss of linguistic diversity, we lost neurodiversity. We lost our brain's fluidity. We lost plasticity of the brain. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to regain that, which is modeled by not just the infant's brain, but also the dolphin that's constantly dreaming. So it doesn't really need to sleep. In a way, we are still honoring the REM state, because REM state is in fact the ability to hold the beta and the gamma, but without losing the deep delta. And if you're experiencing that while you're awake, that the world might be all these things to do with the election and the politics and immigration and all these problems that the economy and so on and so forth. If you're able to hold this deep meditation, this non-reactive space, even while you're awake, that's how you stay in a REM state even while you're awake. So slow wave sleep doesn't need to happen sequentially, meaning it doesn't need to be a specific period while we're sleeping. One of the things that we're modeling with these new playlists that you're describing, Brendan, is we're holding that slow wave sleep no matter what's happening up there. Down here, we got you. It's like the deep space is saying, like, I can hold you. I am the primordial mother, which is the maternal body that allows you to explore the world and play as much as you would like, but you can stay anchored here in the safest space that would allow you to trust that no matter what's happening, there is no wrong or right. There's no good or bad. It's all coming from source. It's all coming from code. So we're able to symbolize that for now as a vibration. We're understanding that as a frequency or as a sound, but there's something deeper than that that isn't sound. It's a consciousness. It's not a brainwave. When we say these terms like POG, beta, delta, mu, they're not brainwaves. This is a consciousness. And a consciousness is an intelligence. It's not a thing. A brainwave is not a thing. It's a sentient being. It's alive. So I think that's practical enough for people to hold. That no matter what's happening, am I losing my parasympathetic? When I'm studying, am I getting anxious? When I'm listening to someone, am I over interpreting? Am I like trying to go far ahead, or am I really just listening? Am I absorbing? Am I deconstructing? That's not really needing to be mystical. That's something that's very, very applicable in all walks of life. And inner dance suddenly becomes an accessible tool that is definitely applicable to many. Okay, I think this has been a lot for a blue call. I want to see first, though, if anyone has more questions or more reflections.
Yeah, hi, Alan speaking here. Hello. I want to add a little bit of a reflection on language and on secession, how we hold or how we were holding in the past while laying down. And I find one of the main ingredients is the trust. And when we look into the SNS and PSNS, and when we say that SNS is going down at one point, while PSNS can go up, when we play music and when we lay down. And something interesting what I find also to look into is about sitting or staying, and while listening to a word, that we have the ability to go also into the space. But we might come from we are also having the SNS quite high, but that there's something about the trust, is that the trust is already there. When the trust is built through the language, through the words, then it can go there. The SNS can drop. And I like it when you pointed out about the structuralism, like yeah, the unconscious is structured like a language. But if you look into the post-structuralism and even more into the post-post, that which is holding everything at once, this reminds me on the movie Arrival, and also the way how we speak when we are in the in session, that we can't speak. When we allow this language to embody and to bring out sounds, those words are even sounds, that the language is something which is allowing us to even to travel in time, in space. It's not holding that language which was there when it was still coming from a structuralist theory. So understanding the structuralism and also understanding where we are at with the inner dance opens up something for us to explore in a new way, to look into how language even shapes not only the reality, but also how it is shaping the perception of the REM state, or even the wake state, or we can even go into the REM while being awake and standing up. So I found it very, very super interesting. How does it connect it? Yeah.
Mm. Based on this, I want to give a really simple metric that translates from the indigo and the green to the blue. And this is something that would come up in our last calls in the subject of cognitive resonance versus cognitive dissonance. We have to be more conscious of how we are expressing from the dual spaces of needing and wanting and having and being. And this would be easily audible in how we are presenting the words and the energy in the words. And here's still where form and content need to come together. Like the more we want it, the more we're wanting it. Like I really want it, the more I need it, the more I try to keep repeating that same blissful state, even though I've had it already, I want it even more. The very moment you're wanting it is the moment you don't have it. Even though you are getting glimpses of having it. This actually is where I didn't go, but this is where the whole Lacanian thing wanted to go. The separation from the maternal or corporeal mother, bringing about that displacement. That I'm not one with the mother, and so I'm always trying to look for the mother and the father in this Oedipus complex. It's like I'm always desiring that which is unattainable, and I keep substituting it like metaphor with one thing after another. Do you actually ever get it? Will you ever actually end up having that which you're wanting? So language is the metric. If language structures the unconscious and vice versa, you can easily hear it in people's words, including your own. Do you already have it? now, or are you still going to be striving for it later? That point of having already allows you access even to that which you don't have now. That could include knowledge and wisdom as well. You know, it's like I need to know, I don't know. But if you already have access to it, even if you don't know, understanding your connection with everything else, like everything is known. So even as you don't know, understanding that everything is known allows it to be knowable at least. And that is coming to you on a daily basis in a holographic way so that even the small things would resonate like the big thing. All of these patterns, it's like a puzzle. It's like you would start, and I'm sure it's already happening to a lot of you, where all these coincidences, all these synchronicities are inching. You know, I'm not speaking this in a preachy didactic way. I'm speaking about this in a way that I'm sure this is already quite present in your space. Just speaking it more carefully and consciously now to acknowledge not what is not here, but practicing this that I'm speaking now, that it's here. That's what this energy is teaching us. And from there we can trust. Only from that space would trust be not just an emotion, but an actual knowing ahead, because I am creating the space where my blessings aren't just on their way. They are always already there, showing up, even though that looks like a problem or something uncomfortable, and so on and so forth. This is easy to say, yet we live in a world where even the great things are quite seen from a space of lack for a lot of people. So even people who have so much resources, it doesn't seem to be enough. They still need the validation and the confirmation that they're good people, that you know that they're. So I think language is the mirror. It's the mirror. It makes visible what to a baby is just a undifferentiated like thing. It helps us to ground it on a daily basis, like one at a time. Each word holds the resonance of completion. I'm not looking for anything. I'm really good. And to be honest, a lot of people might be off put by that because they're looking to save you, or they're looking for a way to complete themselves through a dynamic of um, reliance or dependency. That's a projection of where they are at. But if you break that system, um, so the importance of bringing up Lacanian theory is because that is the psychoanalysis that did look at desire, and his take on it is that it's unattainable, that we can never really have access to the objepatiya, the unattainable mother. But in our experience, like we've rewritten that. We are constantly having experiences where we are one with the mother. We are the mother, not the corporeal mother, but the you know the mother is universe, mother is space. So I think that should be life changing. Like we're praying to it, we're worshiping it in temples, and it's always outside. We're eating it, we're buying it, we're purchasing it. But if people are experiencing it already inside themselves, we just need to shift into a language of having and being rather than this constant. We're never going to get there because the fact that I want it, the more I want it, the more it's not there. The more I want the healing is the moment I'm not healed, because even though I have an experience of being healed, just me vibrating that I was needing it is sending a message to the universe that I didn't have it to begin with. So even as the answer or the solution comes, we actually stated that there was a problem to begin with. So the energy of the problem is still sponsoring the energy of the solution. That is not resonant. That is a cognitive, linguistic, and energetic dissonance. So that's what I mean about language needs to shift. That's what condensation means. The ability to hold totality within every single particularity. And if you can construct a playlist that can do that, for me, every time we say playlist, what do you really mean? Is it music? No, that's a brain, that's a body, that's an energy field, anything that can hold that much frequency at any given time without isolating that this is better than the other. Like that's the playlist, right? Some people might need that as a workshop, all well and good. That's great that we have that process. But for you to experience coming home, to the end of desire is an amazing question. Like, would that really be possible, that you don't have to wait for the thing that you ultimately desire the most, which is death? To die is to become, once again, one with the universe, which is what we're afraid of the most. Would you accept that? Like now, would that be a possible play? And how would you speak that to people's deepest fear, which is actually based on nothing, as a resonance, Um, I've managed to do that over all this time. What I'm interested in right now, I can easily do that when I'm holding space, like speak in this way. This is how I always speak when I'm holding the inner dance space. But what I'm interested in is the translation, bringing that from out there. I am interested in how that would translate into a systematicity. So remember my dream being everything would become one. Uh, you want to experience your liberation in that, and how you do so. I bring up the playlist, for example, where when I speak about in the name of the Father, birthing or initiating yourself into the world through the boundaries of ego and the confines of language means you need to symbolize, which means you mediate, which means that you become the savior, which means there's reliance or dependency there, which sustains separation. It's displacing. When I, for example, did something as simple as construct a playlist, then I lessen the mediation. Like, I don't need to be there. I could just give you something so that you can heal yourself. So starting from that example, like recording this video, posting it on YouTube, I don't need to talk about this thing again. Then I can talk about new things. Before that, I would be looping, I would be going back in the same conversation, not actually expanding into even more interesting things. That frees me up because there's a part of us that's now holding that resonance, So that for me is systematicity. When I hear about the programs happening in jails and schools and refugee programs and breakfast talks and so on and so forth, that's the inner dance growing into the world as a sentient being in a way that's normalized, that in a way that's like in the world. In the last call, we call that the autopoiesis. The part of ourselves is self-generating, that doesn't need things from the outside in order to keep us going. That we have everything we need inside of us to but going back into the blue, it's language itself that's the culprit, that's making us always want validation from others. You know how it is when you're speaking and then you're really wanting someone to resonate, and you're not observing, you're not just listening. It's like you post something out there in media and then you're already thinking about, like, is this going to generate attention from me, and so on and so forth. What is that based on? Like, where did that start? What I find so beautiful about this time and space matrix is it began with the original separation. Do you see now how one thing can become everything? Start from the where it started, where you got displaced, like in the first place. I think there's something about my body that doesn't have so much a problem with this, because when I was born, there was a strong typhoon in July, and my mom had to give this premature birth. And then I didn't have access to any human touch for a whole month after I was born. No one could touch me because I was 1 month premature. Like I was inside this box, this incubator. So I always had this notion that I was forced, even as a child, because of that first trauma, I also didn't have the point of contact that allowed me to be attached to a human mother. So it wasn't hard for me to understand the nature of a mother as the the expansive ground that is everything that holds the space, you know. It was my pain that allowed me to access something that would break through at a very, very young age. So what comes after the Oedipus complex is the castration complex. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's not just the cutting of the cord, it's cutting the organs, it's cutting the gender identity. It's one of the deepest fears, and partly we're undergoing that like deep fear right now. Like, am I ready to let go of even that identity? Because I'm ushering that in the way I speak. I'm always trying to maintain who I think I am, even though I know everyone else is trying to do that, and we're in this constant battle with each other and who has greater identity. So stopping the train, like that's maybe what we come off with today. Like, is it possible that you actually get what you want? But it could be possible that that's what humans least want. The thing that we're the most afraid of is actually what we are at the end of the train of want. You know, there's a train of wanting. It's actually stopping it. I don't know if it's possible. Lacan says it's not possible, but the inner dance experience for me is the thing that seems to say no, it's possible. It just isn't clear yet, so we're now clarifying it a bit. Okay. Yeah. Hope this means something. I don't know how else to end like a blue call, but this is the penultimate. If I read psychology, this is the meta psychology. So keep the conversation going. I hope that we can be a part of a community. Next year, we're going to be opening accessible spaces, affordable spaces, group spaces, and collaborative spaces where those who are interested in this, who would like to share this to others, we can hold these in ways that are balanced and also structured. And I think it takes all of us to do so. So thank you for being part of this, being part of this at its emergence, meaning you didn't come into this where it's institutionalized. So you're not here as a participant, you're here to co-author, you're here to find your own voice and to share equal ground. So you're not here as a student, you're here as a teacher who finds all others to be teachers. So I'm excited for 2025. And we can talk about that like in the next week as to what it could look like, and hoping that we continue. When I speak about these different forms, I'm hoping that we can co-create that new space together from what we know now. So I want to empower you with that, and just let that as well be the last. So maybe you can unmute and we can close the space together. I'm sleepy. Bye. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thanks.